Yeah, I've been in the dictionary business since, oh God, 1980. And, you know, a few years ago I was just starting to think that I was getting the hang of it. And then everything started changing. And it's gone on changing, and the pace at which things are changing has just accelerated. So it's quite an invigorating and unsettling environment to work in. I think ultimately it's all positive, but we are actually in the middle of, or maybe only just in an early stage of sort of very big changes, so that my job has changed kind of pretty much entirely, and 90% of what I do now is completely different from what I've done before, so things have really changed. A view from Umberto Eco, who's quite enthusiastic about printed books. Actually, he may not be as enthusiastic as it first looks. When he says it cannot be improved, that's sort of ambiguous. But here's someone who's very enthusiastic, who I read this review. I hope you can see that at the back, not so well. I'll read it out. It's someone reviewing a new edition of the American Heritage Dictionary that came out last year. And basically, he just likes the book as a sort of physical object. And he's talking about experiencing, taking in that distinctive new book fragrance, and experiencing the subtle yet futile resistance of the book spine on its very first opening. So I'm guessing the person who wrote that is not under 30. Maybe not even under 60, I don't know. Whereas this person definitely is in the kind of demographic that I'm kind of interested in. I've always worked in pedagogical dictionaries for people learning English, and generally speaking, they are, let's say, between, I don't know, 17 and 30, something like that. And I thought this was very interesting. There was an article by Jonathan Green on crowdsourcing, which is referenced in your handout, and this was just a comment on it. 3 things no young person owns or uses, and often don't realize exist: an alarm clock, an address book, and a dictionary. At university, I didn't meet a single person who owned any of them. Now, that's pretty striking, isn't it? And not only what he's saying, but of course the medium he's saying it in, because this is another fairly new development, where you've got an ordinary member of the public making a comment, which is then available publicly all around the world. So these are signs of very big changes. I'll talk about 3 things that have happened to me just in the last few weeks. One is I had a letter from somebody at I live in Canterbury. This is from Canterbury City Council. What's he called? The arboricultural expert or something. It's about they chopped down a tree near where I lived, a big old tree, and this is about what they're planning to do to replace it. So he says, I've selected a container grown Fagus sylvatica purpurea, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know what that is. So what do? Do I go to my shelf and take out my dictionary of botany, which I happen to have because I'm a lexicographer? Do I go to my Latin dictionary, which I also happen to have because I did that at university? Well, yeah, you know what I do. I go to Google, of course. Then I had this thing where I moved from an iPhone to an Android phone. So I just stuck in this question: how do I get my iPhone ringtones onto my new Android phone? And what I don't do is look at the manual that comes with my phone, because actually there wasn't a manual anyway. But that's what I would have done at one time. You know, how do you do this? Instead, what you get is a YouTube video of someone doing it. But the important thing is the YouTube video does not come from Samsung, who made the phone. It comes from, again, a random member of the public who happens to know about these things and thought it would be a good idea to stick up a video about it. So that was kind of nice. And then, as I'm sure everyone knows, more or less every morning you get a thing from Amazon saying, hello, Michael, if you're called Michael. Amazon has some recommendations for you. And that's also kind of interesting. And they're not always bad either. I mean, I have actually acted upon these things sometimes. I mean, not slavishly, but, you know, that can work. So those are the features. Well, what do? You just look it up. And I think there's something on the handout. Oh yeah, the second bit, where search displacing look. I mean, I was at a lexicography conference about a month ago, And somebody there had did a talk based on looking at all of, he'd created a corpus. I mean, he's quite a nerdy bloke, actually, if you know him, but he'd created a corpus of all the talks that had taken place in Eurolex, which is the European Lexicography Association, since it started in 1983 and up to the present, and he'd analysed it. And one of the things he'd found was that the expression "look something up" was sort of going, the graph was going continually down, and the word "search," the graph was going continually up, which I thought was highly, highly significant. The second thing, that YouTube video about, you know, how do I move my ringtones or whatever, is an example of crowdsourcing, which is something I'll come back to later on. And the Amazon recommendations are an example of adaptive technology, which is a very, very big web research area. And it's used increasingly in e-learning tools and so on, where essentially it's personalized and the system gets to know you. It gets to know what you're good at, what you already know, and so on. And then it sort of configures information for you to meet your needs. So the implications of all of this, well, first one, will paper dictionaries survive? And there's a little clue there. Encyclopedias went first. I guess they are, in a way, more vulnerable because they're very large, expensive objects. You know, a big 20-volume printed encyclopedia on your shelf, which is out of date the minute you buy it. Does anyone buy encyclopedias now? I very much doubt it. And I think my friend Hilary Nesi put it very well and sort of explains why dictionaries, maps and encyclopedias are particularly vulnerable, because people consult them while they're doing something else, and that's a very big difference from, you know, reading a novel or reading a history book or whatever, where I think the printed medium still has quite a bit of life in it, although, you know, one wouldn't like to predict that. So the great thing is that for reference materials, whether it's maps, dictionaries or encyclopedias, online is actually better. We have sort of escaped the shackles of the printed medium and the limitations of it. And I would say that dictionaries have found their ideal medium. But just as they've found it, the question then arises whether they will survive at all in any medium. And that's sort of what I'm going to address today. And this is a kind of outline that I'll talk about two revolutions that have happened in the world of dictionaries in the time I've been working with them. Talk about the digitization and the good things and bad things about that, and look a little bit at emerging trends in this area, and sort of try and make some predictions, although it's a very, very hazardous thing to do, but we'll see.